Hello, I'm Graham Park, and welcome to Haçienda in Conversation, the series where I talk to fellow DJs about their career, about the Hacienda, the past, the present,
And the
and the
future.
future. And joining me on the sofa today is the fabulous
Oof,
DJ Paulette. Welcome.
oof. I do love the fabulous.
Well, you are fabulous.
Thank
Look at you.
you. Fabulous, fabulousness.
So, I'm going to start off by going back in time. The young Paulette. Tell us about the young
Yes.
Paulette. What did the young Paulette want to be?
The young Paulette with a little afro and her always thinking big things. Firstly, wanted to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one birthday. Now, me and my twin, our birthday is December 22nd. So our Christmas and birthday presents were always joint between us. So we got a Christmas and birthday present, the four events
I know all about it.
the twins.
Father of
Vibe,
twins, yeah.
father of twins. And one year, my dad got us a petite typewriter, which my twin was just nonplussed. She was like, why have we got this? And I was like, yay, because I just saw writing and I've always wanted to write. And I made a magazine called Clarissa Talk. And then
Why Clarissa talk? Where's Clarissa, Clarissa come from?
I have no idea. It just sounded like a good grown up sort of lifestyle magazine.
Did you read Jackie?
Yeah, Jackie Bunty, the
Bunty,
whole
yeah.
10 yards or whatever you say. And so I wanted to make a magazine like that. So it had a problem page, it had little stories in it, it had a letters page, it had music interviews. I just made it up. I made it up, and I made my family read it every
Excellent.
week whenever I made it.
You know what? Now you've written a book, which is a very good book. You should bring
Thank you.
Clarissa Talk back. I would love to read the problem pages in
Great.
2024.
I can actually remember one of the problems.
What was it?
Because it's always stuck in my head. One of the problems was, dear Clarissa Talk, I get an allergic reaction anytime I eat salt and vinegar crisps. Every time I eat salt and vinegar crisps, my lips blow up.
That was a problem.
That was a problem.
And what was the Clarissa Talk answer?
And the Clarissa Talk answer was, cool your mouth down with eating ice and then put some cream on it. I think I said Savlon because that was my mum's cure for everything. So it's Savlon. Put
See,
Savlon on your lip.
My answer to that problem would be, have you tried cheese and onion? Anyway, we'll...
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Change your brand.
Right. So your book, Welcome to the Club. We'll mention it going forward, but it's a great book. It exists, and if you haven't read it,
Really
do
do.
check it out. But I want to start. It's Hacienda in Conversation. Everyone knows about 88, 89, Summers of Love,
Yeah.
me and Mike, Acid House, and all that. I want to talk about Flesh
Yes.
because that was like a real kind of catalyst for your career, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the catalyst for my career because up until I started DJing at Flesh, I was dancing at the number one on a podium and I was doing bits of modelling and you know, I hadn't thought about DJing as a job at all, but I had lots of records and
That was the same. It just became a
it
DJ by accident.
I became that thing. And when we got given the job of hosting the second room at Flesh, it was a blank canvas because there wasn't anybody like me that I could base what I was going to do.
There is only
on.
one DJ
There's
Paulette.
only one me. And there wasn't, I mean, I'd been a regular at the Hacienda, but I'd never known of a second room really having any kind of personality in there. So it was like, make it what you want to make it. And it was house music on the main floor because Tim Lennox was, the DJ, the main DJ, main resident for Flesh, and Kath McDermott and Dave Kendrick on the main floor. And then the downstairs had to be different. And my music was a bit of everything. So I was playing everything: disco, funk, soul, whatever moved the floor, a little bit of hip hop. I was playing everything from Prince to De La Soul to Gwen McRae to Aretha Franklin. It was house party vibes, real house party, block party vibes, and black music, very black music. And I attracted the dancers, and the black queers who wanted to hang out down there, and everyone who was into black music and disco music that wanted to hang out down there. And it was hedonistic. All the drag artists like Angel swinging from the rafters in the Vivienne Westwood platforms and not very much else. And it was great. But aside from that, it was great creating that thing. But also at the time it was happening, it was politically a very sensitive time.
It was. I mean, how important was Flesh to the Hacienda? Because up until Flesh, it was ecstasy, acid house,
drugs and gangs,
and then we had to close for a few months. And then, what difference did Flesh make to the club?
Well, first of all, it was the first queer gay night that the Hacienda had run in its 9 years of existence. Paul Cons had tried a gay night before that called Gay Monday. And
Paul Cons being one of the
managers.
managers.
Paul Cons was one of the
promoters.
Promoters of Flesh. And Paul joined forces with a woman called Lucy Sher. They created a production company called A Bit Ginger Productions. And it was, first of all, it was first and foremost concerned with LGBT, pushing that message forward into hospitality and events for Manchester and the north of England. And, they created this night that positively discriminated in a way that it was Flesh was advertised as being for dykes, queers and their friends. It flipped that thing where we had previously not been welcome in any big clubs in Manchester, and now we were saying, you're not welcome unless you know somebody from the community.
No, absolutely.
And it did that because it kind of made a bid for being out and proud. It launched in 1991, and just historically, a little, the little footnote for that is we'd come off the back of the AIDS crisis. There was Section 28, which meant promoting anything same-sex educationally or, in information in any books or publicity information was illegal. And the queer experience was kind of being pushed right out of the considerations of anybody for being part of society. And what Flesh did was say, we're here, we're out, we're proud, and look what we've got, because we have this amazing safe space for queer people to come and party.
And it was. I mean, I would pop down when I could. I always wanted to DJ, but I wasn't allowed to because I didn't tick certain boxes.
Yeah, you're not queer.
Well,
Positive discrimination.
Exactly. Which is totally fine. But before Flesh, where did the kind of LGBTQ community go if they wanted to go out clubbing?
Well, I mean, there was Canal Street, and there was Canal Street, and there were the little pockets of places, little basements or upper floors in pubs and that. So I think Manumission started after Flesh.
But where did...
And there was like Mantos and the Rembrandt, the Thompsons, the really obvious traditional
But
places.
nothing is big.
But no, there wasn't a big club for
and what was the inspiration behind Flesh? Where did Paul Cons get his ideas from?
Well, Paul got his idea. He says he got his ideas from visiting New York, first of all, and he went to the Shelter and the Paradise Garage. I think it was the Paradise Garage where he had his real ecstasy experience. And he said in doing that, he was aware what was going to come for queer clubbing. And it had to be diverse and it had to be inclusive. And then also his inspiration was Paul Conser was a very good friend of Patrick Lilly, who was a promoter of a party called Queer Nation in London. And those two together were just like, you know, two peas in a pod.
Yeah, I've met them
you know,
together.
both of them, and they are really a force to be reckoned with together. And they inspired each other. Their clubs, you know, as Flesh inspired Patrick with Queer Nation inspired Paul. So we used a lot of their DJs as well. So Princess Julia, Luke Howard, Jeffrey Hinton all played for Flesh. And it kind of did that thing where it was bringing lots of different tribes together. So we had Queer Nation and Kinky Galinky DJs and performers performing at Flesh. We had Kath McDermott and her night in Liverpool, and we had people from Leeds, Vague, Trannies with Attitude. We brought the entire queer experience together and said it's queer up north. We brought them here. You know, and then lots of people wanted to come up north because it was safe to party up north. And you know,
was it difficult to launch something as big as this, such a big queer night in the north of England? I mean, presumably doing something like that in London, everyone's like, yeah, okay, another gay night.
Yeah, but I think that's why they brought the tribes together, because the Hacienda's a big boots to fill. You know, what
people,
Paul had found with trying to do it the first time with Gay Monday was that he had like 40 people in there. Yeah. He had 40 people in there.
Yeah, but it's different times. I mean, you say Gay Monday, but see, back in the late 80s, early 90s,
could we have it?
You could open Hacienda every night of the week because there were less clubs and people were prepared to travel to go to things.
But you could open a club every night of the week, but you weren't going to have it full. And what they wanted with Flesh was they wanted a full-on experience, and in order to have that,
it was a full-on experience.
And it was a full-on experience. It was sold out every month, and in order to have that, they had to bring the tribes together. So it was Liverpool, Sheffield, Leeds, London. We bought Glasgow. We bought everybody together, and it was packed. You know, it was sold out every month.
It was. Is there a modern equivalent of Flesh? I mean, Flesh still exists in the fact that it does, you know, one-offs and
I would say it's kind of a mix of two things. I think it's Body Movements and the NYC Down Low. It's a mixture of those two events in London because it has that attitude. It has the attitude of those two places. Though? Up north, it would be Homo Block. But Homo Block is like 10 times bigger than Flesh could ever have imagined being.
Do you think, though, is there still a need for a Flesh, or have in the past 30 years...
I wish there wasn't, but yes, there is.
I was going to say, do you think clubs have become more inclusive than they were 30 years ago, or is there still a need for a Flesh night?
Well, I think clubs have become more inclusive, yes, and they are making great efforts to be more inclusive, but what is the danger, and what I see from time to time, is some clubs that are inclusive are only performatively so, and that their crowds don't understand the culture, and that you will still get that crispy homophobic edge, which if you've got trans performers and people and non-binary people and lesbians moving around and mixing, and gays and lesbians mixing around and performing and doing whatever with straight people, you would hope that the straight people that they're mixing with would understand and not be kind of looking at them like they're in a zoo, would be okay with that, and would not be, and would not be touching them inappropriately or calling them names, which does occasionally still happen, and I've seen posts from various promoters, like Clayton Wright put out a post on Instagram last year saying, look, you can include us, but your crowd has to also understand us.
Yeah,
you can't just bolt it on and expect that to be the change, because that's not how we change things.
Was it difficult to persuade the Hacienda, with its heritage and history up to 91, to put on a massive gay night or queer night?
No, it wasn't difficult to persuade, because it achieved something quite positive for the Hacienda, in that it changed the crowd, and it got rid of the gangs and the aggression and the dark edge of it, and it brought the party kind of atmosphere back to the Hacienda, which which is a good thing. I think
undoubtedly a good thing.
It gave
those few weeks before the Hacienda had to close for 3 months were pretty awful.
Yeah, and you lived through that, so you fully understand.
Yeah, the thing is, though, Mike and I, being 20 feet in the air in our DJ booth with the door locked, we weren't aware of a lot of the stuff was going on, or what it felt like, until the end of the night, when people would tell us these things.
And you're like, what?
No,
I've just been playing music. I've not been aware of.
Exactly.
People shooting.
So what would, although Flesh does still exist as a club brand occasionally from time to time,
very occasionally,
what's its legacy?
I think the Flesh legacy is massive, even just in terms of first of all, the diversity of it, because Flesh did that thing that no other club night, straight or heterosexual, was doing in Manchester at that time, and that was putting female DJs in the DJ booth and giving them equal kind of headlining status with the guys.
Yeah.
So both myself and Kath McDermott came up through that very fertile environment and atmosphere where Lucy Share was pushing women forward and was promoting us in such a way that we were on every photo, every poster, every flyer.
Yeah, of course.
So that in itself is a massive evolutionary move for clubbing, full stop. I mean, how many female DJs did you dance to when you were younger?
I remember having a massive argument. I won't say the promoter and I won't say the club on this recording, but I remember it was in the early 90s. I was in Florida on a UK club tour, not the Hacienda, and I remember having this massive argument at dinner, pointing out that 50% of the audience, roughly speaking, were women.
Yeah.
Why aren't there more women? Because there was a DJ in Aberdeen called Jackie Morrison, who was incredible. She even covered for me at Hacienda one night, but she was just always so nervous, but a great DJ. And of course there was yourself, Smoking Joe, and I was friends with Nancy Noyes and Lisa Loud, and it did strike me, and hindsight tells me maybe Flesh made me think about this more,
because you were seeing it,
but there should be
as
more,
a norm.
Exactly, there should be more women on the decks, and this of course is a theme of your career and your book, which we will come to, but you're absolutely right. Have things changed that much? So we'll maybe come to that.
Yeah,
there are.
Let's
more,
look
there
at
are
future
more,
forward.
But we will. We'll come to that. We'll come to that shortly. I'm not brushing this one side. We will come to this again. But this was literally like we said, the catalyst for your career.
Yeah, big time.
And then you ended up going to do play at the Zap.
Yeah, because
Brighton.
that was the joyous thing, because everybody did come to Flesh from all over the UK. So every gig that I was invited to play, those promoters had seen me. I mean, we didn't have streaming services. We didn't have Mixcloud, SoundCloud, anything like that. So for somebody to hear you play, they had to be there to hear you play.
But don't you think, though, back then people would travel more?
Yeah, and they did.
People now travel to festivals, obviously, because a festival is somewhere to go to.
Yeah.
But people used to come to the Hacienda from all over the country. But not just Hacienda. Cream, Ministry of Sound, Renaissance, Gatecrasher.
trade.
Colours and street rave in Scotland.
Absolutely.
People don't do the travelling to clubs things as much anymore, do they?
No, they don't, because it's kind of been taken away. And I think I really benefited from that.
No, I think we all
because
did.
in order to be offered my residency at the Zap Club, Wayne Kurtz saw me play in the basement at Flesh. And he offered me, first of all, the gig in June when I'd finished my finals, and said, come and play for us. And then when he saw me play on my own for 2 hours on a main floor, which, you know, he hadn't seen, he was like, well, I'll offer you the residency. Weekly Saturdays, Carl Cox's Friday, your Saturday, and, you know, why not? And it was the same with James and Thomas from React. They heard me play at Flesh, and then they offered me the garage at Heaven.
Exactly. People had to come, a promoter, if they wanted to hear you, would have to come and see you.
Yeah.
It's like that because of Haçienda, that's how I got a residency at the Brain Club in London, because Mark Wigan and, sorry, I've forgotten the other guy's name, were at Haçienda.
Yeah.
Or will you come and play at the Brain?
Yeah.
I lived in London, which helped.
Yes.
But you,
I moved.
Moved to
Yeah,
London.
yeah,
But
because people also have to understand when we say we moved that we didn't have high-speed trains.
No.
We didn't have, you know...
Actually, can I ask you about trains, right?
Yes.
So...
I'm always moaning about
well,
the
let me
train.
let me just point out for the viewers, between us, we have 70 years
Yeah.
of DJ experience. How scary is that?
Oh, that's
Paulette, right?
really
So you've
terrifying.
been doing it for 3 decades.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 4 decades. So, so I've got a little bit more on you, just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I've travelled the world, and still do travel the UK, right? The question I want to ask you is, right, in my 40 years of travelling, I've maybe had 3 instances that have caused me issues getting to gigs. But you seem to have regular,
Non-stop, relentless,
trains, planes, automobiles.
relentless.
What are you doing wrong?
It's my
Are you getting on the wrong
heel.
train?
No, I've never got on the wrong train. I've never got on the wrong train
Neither
to
have
go
I.
anywhere.
Listen, I've had, honestly, one flight was delayed so much from Mexico, I missed a gig. One night going to the Ministry of Sound, the fog was so bad I was late.
Right.
And then I was racking my brain after thinking about this question, racking my brain. I can think of maybe 2
Well,
instances
you can't use
in
Avanti.
40 years.
Well, you can't use Avanti
can't
West Coast
I use them all the
that
time.
much.
I use
Because
them all the
every
time.
time I get on an Avanti West Coast train, I am just like spitting blood. It's like, what is happening
I
here?
don't understand, 'cause I use Avanti a lot, and to Scotland, to London.
Well, maybe they just look out for me then. Maybe it's just like
I
my
wonder if it's Manchester,
magicness
I wonder if it's
aurora.
Manchester Piccadilly, because
It's not just Avanti though.
I tend to
sorry.
get the train from Warrington. and
Yeah.
there's
Well,
more trains,
maybe it's that.
Anyway,
but it's not just the trains, because I was on in the airport going, and this is it was a simple journey as well. I was going to Hamburg, so it was supposed to be, and I don't know why Manchester Hamburg direct doesn't exist, but it doesn't. So I had to go Manchester, Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam, Hamburg, and then the Manchester plane was delayed like 3 hours, which then knocked out the connection, which then meant that I couldn't get that connection. I had to go Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Hamburg, and it took me 11 and a half hours to get from Manchester to Hamburg. That's not my fault.
I always factor in the possibility of this happening. But
Well,
anyway,
you can't factor in somebody
listen,
being ill on
I'm
a
not
plane
this-
and then
this-
having to turn
Listen,
round.
I'm not
in
Judith
the air.
Chalmers. It's not a holiday program. Let's get back to.
Yeah, I know, but it's like
So you-
kryptonite to me traveling.
Right, so it's back in the British Rail days. You moved to London, but that didn't really kind of work out for you as well. I mean, you ended up with
London worked out massively.
Yeah, no, I mean, because you ultimately left. I mean, no, you did the working for Mercury Records and did lots and lots of networking. But you did say in your book that there seemed to be more women in the industry in London.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you were comparing that to the north.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I did. Because we all did that thing, because a lot of the women that were working in the music industry in the South were from the North.
They were. They were indeed.
They were.
Actually, yeah. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that in the book, but yeah.
We all moved.
But also, though, the record industry, the music industry, was based in London as well.
Yes.
So presumably, if you wanted to work in that
Yeah,
industry,
you had
which is
to
why you
be
went there.
That's
But
why
you
I
ended
went
up doing press for
Yes.
Mercury Records.
Yes, I did.
And all their affiliated, a lot of their affiliated,
Yeah,
Manifesto,
so Talking Loud, Manifesto, Def Jam, Fontana,
But
and a
you
few
say
other
in your
labels
book
besides.
you were kind of thrown into the deep end. You didn't get any mentoring
Oh,
or any
no.
training.
Oh, God, no.
So how did you suddenly deal with the fact, yeah, Paulette, go and do all these things and do it tomorrow? How did you cope? How did you learn?
I think one of my soft skills, or is it a hard skill, is I'm a people collector. I kind of assess rooms, and I can be quite distant, but then I also make friends quite easily, and I don't have difficulty communicating with people. So I'm very much a people collector, and I've been like that from being very small. So I used to write lists of how many friends I'd made on the inside of my wardrobe door. When it got to 200, I was like, oh my God,
Wow.
I know all these people. So I have always been that kind of establishing contact. So I knew that was the easy part of the job for me, is just finding the people that I needed to talk to,
So you
to do
connected.
this thing. So
Yeah.
connected.
So you were able to pick up the phone to people, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what we had to do. We
Yeah.
had to pick up the phone
exactly.
and
No
fax people.
emails.
No emails.
But knowing you as I do, you are well, you come across as a very confident person. So if you have to meet a band or promote a band or meet an agent or do something to promote a record, you strike me as not having a problem with just walking into a room and going, right, I'm Paulette. This is what we're going to do.
And it's a funny one, really, because I am quite, believe it or not, shy. But when I need to do that thing,
Exactly.
I am not
It's
shy
being
about
professional.
it. And I am not afraid also of making a mistake. And I am always open to learning. And I didn't know what I was doing. I've never known anyone who was a PR, but I had an idea of what I needed to do in order to do this job. And
Yeah. Because the difference today is you can go to university and get a degree in PR and marketing.
Yeah.
But back then, not so much.
No, well, I mean, there of course there were. I think there were PR things that you could do, courses that you could do, but not for the music industry
No,
specifically.
exactly.
And all I did was, okay, I've got these bands. I need to do a press campaign. Who do I need to speak to? And I just bought every newspaper, every magazine, every music magazine or whatever it was, and I cut the mastheads out and stuck them in an address book, because they used to, the mastheads with all the writers and the editors and all of that, and I put it in an address book. And I thought, well, if I wanted to talk to somebody about hip hop, then Hip Hop Connection, Touch, Blues and Soul, I want to speak to those magazines. And if I want to speak to somebody about, and I just put it together in my head. And it worked, because that was what I was supposed to do. And then I got quite good at it, and then I got really good at it, and then.
But then you talk in your book not about a glass ceiling, but a lead-lined glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, this was the thing. So I've been doing this job for probably about 3.5 years.
Where are we now? Kind of mid to late 90s?
Mid to late 90s. Yeah. And I thought, this is the time, because Ronnie Size had won the Mercury Music Prize, and Four Hero had got a MOBO, and they'd been nominated for the Mercuries, and Ronnie Size had got Brit. And these were artists that I'd done the press campaigns for. And they also didn't have any TV or any radio, because you couldn't get those artists on radio or TV then. And so I thought this was a really good time to go and ask for a promotion. And I found when I went to ask for my promotion that the general manager said, "Oh no, you don't want that, do you? You're a maverick. You want to stay doing your job," which was basically the highest paid low scale press officer that you could probably have, but I was doing all the dance press, so I had a responsibility, but not in name or position or status. And no, you don't want to be a senior and you don't want to be head of press. I'm like, why am I sitting here if I don't want to be?
So you're going to show a bit of ambition.
Yeah, and I got held down.
The company. That's it.
And I got held down.
And do you put that down to your gender and race?
Absolutely, 100%, because it was also at a time when every person of colour, there was a drain on that year. Every single member of staff that was a person of colour at Mercury Records left.
Wow.
And it was like dominoes. It was just like, why are we all leaving? And we never ever talked about it between ourselves, but everybody left. And I think it was that point, because we'd all been working and we wanted a promotion and we weren't being offered it. So I went off to...
Well, you went to what was it?
Azuli Records, where I got a lot more money.
Dave Piccioni is a very old friend of mine. I've not seen him for a long time, but now he's
he's
living
doing
in
well.
Ibiza.
Yeah.
But Azuli, and then later defected as well.
Yes,
so you then went to the independent sector.
Yes.
So how different was that?
Yeah, that was like a real baptism of fire, because I didn't have a company car, and it wasn't all swish, and it wasn't all endless budgets of... well, mind you, though, I didn't have a budget.
But what was more fun, the corporate world or the independent world?
The independent world.
More organic?
I had a lot more responsibility. I loved the music I was working with. I loved the artists I was working with. And I could, I could do the job that I wanted to do, which was find new music. I was promotions and A&R director at Azuli. So my remit was just to drag Azuli kicking and screaming into the...
I know the answer to this, but for the viewers, what's the record you're most proud of at Azuli?
Afro Medusa's Pasilda.
Exactly, yeah.
It was Afro Medusa's Pasilda and The Soul Provider's Rise, and they were my two records.
I would go Rise every time.
Would you go Rise? Yeah. Okay, so Steve Pitterin also, because he licensed Rise from me for A&M, and he put out a post on Instagram about a week ago saying, we've got this relationship and I will always remember her for this record. And it was Soul Providers.
Yeah, great record.
Yeah.
And while you're in London, are you
having the time of my life?
Are you still DJing?
Yeah, every week, everywhere. I had an agent in Switzerland, I had an agent in Italy, I had an agent in France, I had an agent. I had. Do you know the problem was, which I never put in the book and I should have, I had all these agents, but none of them were talking to each other.
Oh, I've got a great story about that for another time, not for now.
So because none of them were talking to each other, there was that competitive edge between each region. So if somebody even stepped over the border, so France's borders, Germany, Italy, and wherever. So if I got that, then it was World War III between the two agents over whose booking it should be. So so I was DJing at the same time, practically working 7 days a week, and I was a basket case. And I was doing a lot of TV as well.
You were.
And the occasional radio bits. We did TV together.
Yeah, remember that MTV thing we did when you disappeared?
Oh, yeah.
And then I was forced to go on stage. And then I'm like,
I did put that in there. I did put that in the book.
And I'm like, no, you've got to do it.
I was there.
And then when it's done, you go like you're like with a face like thunder.
I'm sorry, because I was waiting at the other side.
I know, it's
in
ridiculous.
The book. But
it's all in the book.
It's all in the book. Read it.
So things are going really well for you in Manchester. So you moved to London.
Yeah.
Things are going really well for you in London.
And
so
then
you moved to Paris?
And then they're not. Yeah, because
Why?
because
Is there a theme developing? Well, we find out there is a theme developing.
Yeah, there is a theme developing, and it's that glass ceiling again. So you can get so far, but the culture was changing, particularly for females in dance music, and it was like the rise of the ladette and the, you know, it was a different kind of DJ that was getting the press attention and the gigs, and I mean, you had to party. I'm not a mad partier. I don't do it very well, and I explain that.
You do explain it very well
in the book. But also, you had to look a certain way, which was basically white, and you had to play a certain music, which was, you know, I was at the time I was playing a lot more soulful and deeper house, and that music just wasn't cutting it.
So staying true to your values.
So, you know, I could only play a certain way, and I can play chunky house and I can play a bit harder, but my sound wasn't right. And I started touring a lot for the Ministry of Sound, and I was playing a lot in France. And I just found that I had this public. I was a lot more popular in France than I was in the UK.
Why do you think that was? No ladette culture?
No ladette culture. No, and the drug culture is different in France as well. And the cliques were different.
But also,
as well.
that period of time was like a real kind of exciting time for French dance music, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we're moving into 2002 onwards, and I moved to Paris in 2004, which was like French music, French house music, French electronic music was just like on fire, and it was starting to burn. I think probably around 2006, 2007 it exploded, and then we had David Guetta and Joachim Garraud and all of those, Martin Solveig, Bob Sinclair, who suddenly became these Uber DJs. So I'd moved to a place where not only was I doing really well because I was different, there weren't any like female DJs playing the house that I was playing. The female DJs in France were like your Chloe, and they were playing like minimal, really underground, either techno or house, but they weren't playing like vocal, solid main room house that I was playing. And I just landed really well in Paris, and I thought, why not? And I met someone, and it's like, I've sold my flat, I've met someone, I'm doing really well here. It felt like a no-brainer. Why am I going to stay in the UK where nothing's really happening, when I can kind of exploit this now? Yeah. So I moved to France, and I had like 9 of the best years of my entire DJ life. It was, you know, I became the female DJ who was playing on the bill with David, Martin, Bob.
And you were on the French equivalent of Radio 1 as well?
Yeah, Radio FG. I had a radio show every week. It was a mixed show. They wouldn't let me speak. I don't know why.
Can you speak French?
Yeah, I can. I can, but it's not good enough.
They wouldn't let you speak?
Huh?
They wouldn't let you speak?
No.
Okay.
They wouldn't, which was just the maddest frustration, because if they'd have let me speak, it would have been different. But
so, going back to this theme, so after a successful period in Manchester, successful period in London, successful period in Paris, you're having a successful period. Oh, I know, I'll move to Ibiza. Why?
Because, I mean, Ibiza is just like this paradise for DJs.
Can I just say, right, and I know I'm kind of out of kilter with this. Yeah, I like Ibiza. I like to visit. I can think of nowhere worse to live than Ibiza.
Well, this is what I found.
I mean,
this is what I found.
Oh, you ever thought about moving to Ibiza? I'm like, what?
Why?
No way. But you did it.
Now, the thing is, I love Ibiza, and I will always love Ibiza.
In small doses, I would agree.
It's a beautiful place, and it's got a lot to offer in terms of, you know, nature sea, sun,
Yes.
sea, even out of season, it's a
Yes.
beautiful place. Out of season,
Yes.
it's a beautiful place for hiking, walks, whatever. But what I found in living there as a single person, I mean, you need to be in a couple, first of all, if you're going to live there all year round. Because when the clubs close and the music stops, people get really, like, that hibernation gene clicks in.
Yes.
And it becomes like dinner parties and Netflix and chill, and you don't really see anybody. And if you haven't got kids and if you're not in a couple, it is a lonely place to be.
So what? Why move there then?
Well, I'd met someone first of all,
Right, okay.
which made sense, but we broke up really quickly. Surprise! That I'm just not very good at the relationship thing, I have to admit. And also, you need to really know the people to DJ
Yeah.
on the island. And the people who are DJing on the island have been DJing on the island for 20 years, and they are holding on to their residencies. And fair enough, they're holding on to their residencies, but that means if you're a new face, getting something is very difficult. And I did not find my rhythm there at all, and I don't think people understood me. I don't think people wanted to understand.
Did you regret moving there?
Massively in lots of ways, but if it taught me one lesson that was really, really good, it taught me how to DJ in bars, and it taught me how to kind of get that long set DJing in bars.
So you so all through these ups and downs,
and how to budget.
And budget, very important. So you're still DJing though.
Yeah,
but maybe
I was
not
still
on the same
DJing.
scale.
I was still DJing. I was DJing kind of almost non-stop, but nobody ever heard me. And then if people ever did hear me, they'd come to hear me at a bar and they'd say, "You're wasted."
No,
here."
but I like the way you put a positive spin on. You say you were DJing in bars for long stretches, but learning how to do it. In a
I
certain
was.
way,
I was
which
learning.
I think is a good attitude. So let's just fast forward a little bit. Let's get you suddenly go. Oh, what the hell? Back to Manchester. Why did you come home?
2 reasons. My mum was ill, and I was aware.
I know you ended up becoming her carer.
Yeah. Wow, that was a journey and a half. So my mum was ill, and my sisters. I was just aware that my family really needed somebody else to kind of help out, and I just wanted to step into my responsibilities as a daughter and a sister and a member of my family. And I was really aware that in the years that I'd been away in London, in Paris, in Spain, that I'd missed a lot of my family life. And for sure, I've been going backwards and forwards. But
So is this like almost 20 years?
Yeah, 20 odd years. Probably. Well, I left in 2004, and No,
I mean, if you count,
I left in 1994.
Yeah.
And counting London, and I went back in 2015.
So it's 20 years.
Yeah. So
did you go back to Manchester much when you were in London, Paris, and Ibiza?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So you're back in
Not
Manchester.
Not really. I mean, if I think about it, barely 90 days.
Okay, but so come on, back to Manchester, because I'm just time's getting on.
So Mum was ill, and also nothing was happening for me in Ibiza, and I was just really aware, if I do not go back, I am killing my career here, and if I stay another year, that will be it. And I just thought, if I go back to the UK, then at least I can speak the language, I can meet people, and I can start to rebuild my career, and that's what I did.
But then, as things are starting to build up again, things are going great.
Yeah.
COVID. Pandemic. And that...
Oh, bum.
Now, that affected everyone
all
in
of us.
different ways.
Yeah.
No income for 18 months. I'm lucky. I'm a part-time senior lecturer.
Teaching.
So that little salary
Yeah.
kept me going. But
Yeah.
but you probably had nothing, right?
Yeah, we saw each other regularly. I mean, because we did the streams for the
Well,
Hacienda, which
that was a
became
really. I was going to ask about your thoughts on that, but it
a
was
lifeline.
It was a lifeline. The best, one of the things I liked about doing Stream GM was getting to drive to Bury on a deserted motorway.
Yeah, with that letter in
With
the car.
that letter from Andy Burnham,
that
so if you get
said
stopped.
that if we got
Yeah.
stopped, because we were getting stopped. If you left the
Yeah.
house, you were getting
No,
stopped.
exactly.
Why are you out? And it was a really...
But it was good. But it was good because we were all masked up and
Yeah,
socially distanced.
yeah.
But if you were at the theatre or Tom or whatever, just physically seeing someone,
Yeah, it was...
and having a conversation that wasn't on a screen was
Yeah.
really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, because that was how hard the lockdown was for me right in the beginning of it.
Living on your
because
own.
I live on my own.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning, I think we only got the bubble of 3, was it, in June? So we had like 3 months, nearly 4 months of me being like...
I can't imagine. It was bad enough
Oh my
living
God,
on my own with my family. I mean, not bad enough. It was great, but I mean, I can't
it was
imagine
tricky.
what it was like on your own.
And I'd gone from seeing my sisters and my mum and all of that, because I'd moved out of my mum's house in 2018. So I had my own house, and I was walking and I'd wave at my mum from the window, and she'd come to the window and wave back, and we'd have a little chat. And then I'd go to my sister Alicia's, and because she was classed as vulnerable, I got to walk her dog because she couldn't walk her dog. And walking the dog was just like, I mean, I've even put a credit for Walt in the back of my book because he was an emotional support dog for me. If I hadn't have had the dog, I mean, I did lose my mind anyway.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind me asking,
it would have been a lot worse.
you had
if
like
I had the dog.
anxiety issues.
Oh
didn't you?
my God, yeah. The first
But what were you
anxiety
thinking? I mean,
attack.
obviously the pandemic was like, that's like a curveball that no one could
Yeah.
predict. But things are starting to pick up for you, and then suddenly this comes along.
Yeah.
Is that why you had the anxiety?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I'd already been in therapy before the pandemic hit, and I'd just been discharged before the first lockdown, and I knew I was already a bit fragile.
Why were you having therapy?
Because I had carer fatigue, so I'd been looking after my mum, and it had done a bit of a number on my head anyway. And the therapy had started to work on levels of stuff that I hadn't exactly dealt with. And then when we went into lockdown, it was like, oh no, I've not really finished doing that, and I'm in the middle of something.
Right, so you've not completed something.
I didn't complete it. And then this whole like trigger of being not working, being sat on my sofa, doom scrolling 24/7. I mean, I was literally like, I might as well have sellotaped my phone to my hand. It was that bad.
Yeah.
The doom scroll was strong. And
that's not good then for
it
your
wasn't
mental
good.
health.
No. I mean, it was just like birds tweeting. By April, I was just losing it, and I had my first anxiety attack.
What about your vertebrae fracture as well?
I think, do you know what? Honestly, I think
Just to
the
add to
thing
your
that
issues,
added to that was looking at my phone
Right,
like
okay.
that, which had aggravated a broken neck, which...
Well, they are kids. Bear that in mind when you're scrolling.
Yeah, but do you know
Listen to
how much?
people
Do you know how
Yeah.
much your head weighs when you're doing that? And it's actually a fact. Your head weighs a ton.
Going back to Stream GM, because obviously that's like a lifeline.
Yes.
It was for everyone involved, not just the people who were DJing, but the people who were putting the show on.
Yeah,
who are
and
the
the people who are
behind
watching
this
it.
and watching it. Were you surprised at how many people joined in and watched? Because it was huge.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I was also really touched because,
absolutely.
when I was in that state, I was almost feeling like my career was over and I'm never going to work again, and this is never going to come back. How are we going to get this all back? And it was like the real test of something new, because we hadn't done it before.
Yeah.
Like we hadn't partied virtually.
So I'm just trying to find this
before.
quote from you. In your book, you said that Stream GM was, quote, a distraction from your mental health problems.
Yeah, and it really was, because Stream GM was a distraction because I could think about what I could do rather than what wasn't happening. I could think about how I wanted to present a set, and the whole writing messages and getting people to, I mean, I never take requests, but I was asking people to send their messages to their loved ones, and and I was holding up these messages that either you could see it or you couldn't see it.
You were great,
actually. The messages were real. They were real.
I remember thinking, damn, I wish I thought that.
It was all real.
But the thing is, because you were already doing it, I thought, I can't do it.
Yeah, that was my little trick. That was my thing.
Okay, so then what's your thoughts on, I mean, I know my thoughts, but socially distanced events, because you did a few socially distant events, and we did the Victoria Warehouse.
Yes, we did.
They didn't
How
work,
hard
did
is
they?
it?
They didn't work.
Music,
I mean, I understand them, and they served a purpose.
Is for sharing.
No, I know.
Music is for community, and music is for dancing.
Exactly.
And music is for jumping up and getting out of yourself too. So at the beginning, when we came out of lockdown and we were doing the first socially distanced events, and the first one I did was we did Victoria Warehouse, which was like 500 people roped off.
I know. I
mean, it was nice. It was great for the people to come.
Yes, it was.
But I felt so bad because they couldn't dance.
No, exactly.
They couldn't socialise between the tables.
I know.
And, if you were even passing someone in the corridor going to the toilet, you couldn't talk to them.
I know.
It was awful.
I did a few outdoor ones, which was slightly more relaxed, but still not the same.
Well, I did Escape to Freight Island, which
course,
was, again, fantastic, a really good concept, but then you couldn't move between tables.
No, exactly.
People were getting told off by having a chat at
exactly.
the mates on the next table. And it's like, that's not music. The culture is like, we're supposed to share this thing.
No, exactly.
So, my thing is...
But obviously...
as good as it was...
Yeah. But doing Stream GM and starting to do the gigs, even though they're social distance, suddenly things start to pick up again.
Yeah.
But then, according to you in your book, we come out of lockdown, and then lockdown ended, and you had your full mental
nervous breakdown. Yeah, that was.
How was that a result of your anxiety building up,
it was.
not finishing therapy?
Yeah.
But
all of the above, and also.
So how?
I've got no money in the bank.
Yeah, it was understandable.
I've still got to pay my rent, and what little work was coming in, people were employing us, but half rate, quarter rate.
No,
we weren't getting the same fees for it. So it's just like, I've got to pay my rent here, and I'm the only one in the house.
Is that when you had the idea for the book, or had you already started?
Well, this is the interesting thing, because the book came in April 21. They approached me first of all, and we worked on the submission till November, and it was presented to the committee in November. So I'd had a year, not quite a year, but quite a few months of a distraction while I was having a nervous breakdown. Needless to add, that something else was going to come, which was great. And I made the decision for the deadline of the book based on us still being in lockdown.
Right. You don't make things easy for yourself, Paulette, do you?
I said, I can get this book written in a year, because I thought we were going to be at home all the time. And then in December 21, they said, you can have Christmas and New Year.
On the subject of your book, it's called Welcome to the Club. If you've not read it, it's a good read. Let me just quickly throw some quotes from your book. One of them, patience is one of my strong points.
Yes, it is.
I'm with you on that. I think you've got to be patient.
We have. This is the thing about DJing and about some of the brands, Hacienda brand, that's been going for 40 years, these numbers aren't little numbers.
No.
And to, for whatever level you get to, if you love what you do and you manage to keep what you do going for a certain length of time, longevity,
40 years,
that's a massive thing, because in all of that time you've been able to navigate recessions, changing trends,
financial meltdowns,
changing
losing radio
technology,
contracts,
losing contracts, losing jobs, losing residencies.
Exactly.
I mean, both of us have been residents and not residents.
No, exactly.
And you get dropped inhumanly,
but that's
from one day to the next.
But that comes with experience. You learn to adapt, because you have to adapt.
Yeah, you learn to adapt.
And I'm with you. Being patient really helps.
Yes.
Deal with stuff.
Yeah.
Quick, few more. Sorry, you going to say something?
I mean, I am very good at playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly. And for all those young up-and-coming DJs, play the long game.
Yeah, figure out how to play the long game, because it might happen today, but then when you get a curveball,
no, exactly,
like COVID,
you don't know what's going to happen.
Don't know how you're going to work.
Your recommendation for wellness is, quote, sobriety and rejection of toxicity. But
Absolutely.
you say this is controversial.
Yeah, because some people would say, well, you work in an environment where you're encouraging people to drink and party and have a great time and get out of their minds and all of this. So why are you sober?
Yeah.
Because it works for me. That's why.
I get it.
It works for me.
I can see why you think
like
it's
that.
controversial, but I did that all through the 90s, 80s and 90s and 2000s, and stopped everything in 2016 because George Michael died. We were the same age.
Yeah.
But lockdown, I started having the odd drink again, and now I can have one drink.
Yeah, and
which
it
is
would
difficult.
be nice.
It's difficult.
Would be nice for me, but also the sobriety thing is linked to the mental health.
Yeah.
And because I did a lot of EMDR, and they
What's EMDR?
do eye movement desensitization.
Yes, gotcha.
And because I've done that, and they just say the two don't mix.
Right.
And for myself, I just needed to know which was me being depressed and which was me being hungover or on a come down.
But have you also found yourself being more productive?
Yeah, 100%.
Well,
like, people, they'll say, "Oh my God, we see you everywhere," and it's like, because I made a change.
Me too. I did a
change.
little post about this, and this morning, and one of the comments was, "Oh my God, do you ever stop?
No.
Oh my God, do you ever have a day off?" But the point is,
No.
sobriety
helps.
It's Monday, and we're sat on this sofa. Now,
Yes.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
we'd be ringing up going, "Can't make it.
Sorry.
No, I just can't do it."
Yeah.
Right, let's quickly go through another quote from your book. You say, quote, "We can't blame men for everything."
Absolutely not.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely not.
But
and there's two things.
Why do you say
in
that? Because your book is about being not just a woman of colour, but black.
Yeah, it's the
Sorry,
politics.
but
it's
it's
the
about
politics
women,
of music.
women struggling against men.
The politics. Well, women
You say you
struggling.
can't blame men for everything.
I say it's not. I think that's why I said it. It's not men that's the problem. There are systemic problems about any workplace, and it's not just music. It's TV, it's radio, it's galleries, museums. There are systemic problems, but we can't just say it's because there's more men than women, because also there are women that could help that don't.
Got you.
And that, I think we have to be aware of ourselves and what we do for our sisters in this industry, what we do to help our sisters in the industry. Do we help anyone up?
Right.
Or do we hold people
Do you think things
down? And there are some people that will hold.
And have things improved in the past 20 years, do you think?
Yes, they have, because for the last 4 or 5 years for me has been finding and connecting to a network and a sisterhood that is so strong that I've never had that before.
Yeah.
So yes, things have changed in that way, but it doesn't mean it's gone away.
No,
and it
of
doesn't
course.
mean that we don't have to think about it. And I think it's very easy
Which
for
is
women
why
to say.
people should read your book. Right, conscious of the time, let's go.
Yes.
Let's go a few
TikTok.
quick fire questions. So
Okay.
that means quick fire answers.
Okay.
The Hacienda now still relevant, still exists, still very popular. When we do the Warehouse project, I'm sure you've noticed this as well. Most of the crowd weren't even born when the Hacienda closed.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful. Why do you think that it's got that appeal?
Because you and me and the people that we use have evolved. We're not just having a nostalgic party about how we used to live. It's
Exactly.
we're all still doing
What's
it.
the obsession?
You have a radio show and a mix every week. Like, you don't stop because you are still current and you are still listening to new music. And, you know, you've got classical, but that, you know.
Yeah, but that's why we did classical. I was fed up being asked to play old
old
get
tunes.
a proper classic song.
Yeah, but we
I am
play
playing a
other
proper
things.
classic. Yeah, exactly.
We do other things and we're interested in other things. And I, you know, I can play classics till the cows come home, but I would rather not because I'm still listening to new music.
You've been doing it for 30 years. I've been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
Come on.
And I am still buzzed about new producers.
I mean,
and
I
new
understand people who
artists.
maybe who've stopped going out and then come back out again. I understand that, but
yeah, but then they pick the nostalgia part that they want to
Exactly.
go to. And the reason that the Hacienda is still strong is that every DJ, even though we are OGs, a lot of us, original
How old are you?
gangsters, how gangster can you be?
No, exactly.
But how gangster can you be if you can play an old record next to a new one and you can't see the joint?
that's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
What do you think of the current crop of young up-and-coming DJs?
What do I think of them? I think there are some absolutely phenomenal talents out there. I mean, in every genre. But I'm
But I
not
knew there was a but
really
coming.
seeing.
No, exactly.
I'm not really seeing.
But it's a different world.
House that many women in house
Yeah,
music.
okay.
I'm seeing a lot of women in techno coming through. A lot of women in drum and bass. A lot of women in eclectic. So you've got Jams, you've got Jaguar, you've got Near Archives, you've got Sherelle, you've got Cyrita, who are all doing amazing things. And then I've got like Carly Wilford and Emily Nash, who are like house music DJs who are doing really super well. But I'm not seeing a huge amount of women in house music. There aren't the double women outfits that are getting the gigs.
Talking of outfits, right?
Yes.
You talk in your book about having to get changed in a cupboard.
Haven't you done that?
Well, no, because I'm a bloke. I just
you don't have to change your
I can just
outfit.
change. I can just change my top in the
You don't have to
toilet,
have a
or even change my top backstage. But then I'm always on time. No, I never have the public transport problems. But the thing is there more pressure on women DJs to get changed and to look spectacular?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you're a techno woman wearing head to toe black, you know, I can look at Nicole Mudaber doing her promo shoots are top of the range fashion. You know, look at Eliza Rose, top of the range fashion.
No,
You can't.
I get
mean,
it.
even Taja, you know, she's a face for Burberry. You've like got to have some kind of look or fashion connection. Even Princess Julia, she is like haute couture. You know, you can't, as a woman, you can't just change your t-shirt in the toilet. Because somebody on social media somewhere would post a picture of you looking absolutely shocking. And this happened to me last year, actually. I was playing Elrow and we got stuck in traffic. And I didn't have time to change between getting out of the car and getting on stage. Unfortunately, I'd put on a T-shirt that looked kind of colourful and bright. So from the top half, it looked okay. But somebody shot the film from the back, and I had a really shocking pair of tracksuit bottoms on because I'd been in the
Right.
car, and it just looked like, oh.
See, I think people that shouldn't be an issue, but I
But it
understand, I
is because
understand why it
people
is,
post
yeah,
on social
exactly.
media. They put that stuff on social media,
Yeah,
and
I
then
know, it's-
everybody
yeah.
comments on it, and people are
Which is
quick
why I
to
always
comment.
I always wear selvage jeans. Well, not today,
You see?
but and a variety of different
You
t-shirts
see,
with my
you
logo on.
can, you
And
can.
of course, if you're lucky enough to be David Morales, you just whip your shirt off.
Yeah, and I do not wear short skirts because that's
Well, okay.
upskirting
So-
was really bad.
Really quick fire now. How do you relax if you ever relax?
I do yoga, I walk, I read a lot. I've been reading a lot, which
Yeah.
is great. I love that.
Although-
walk my sister's dog.
Although in your book you asked people for advice about your book, and somebody said DJs don't read, which I took offence at because I read all the time.
Yeah.
What, on the subject of advice, quickly, what quick advice would you give for up and coming DJs?
Um,
Especially
be
women?
Be yourself, and just get out there and do it. Because if that's the one frustration is being pulled aside by women saying, "I really want to do that, but I can't." I'm like, why can't you? Why can't you? You know, nobody's ever born knowing what they want to do or how to do the job they're going to do. We learn.
What would you
So
say?
figure it out.
What would you say to the young Paulette on her typewriter writing Clarissa? Clarissa,
Yeah,
what was it
keep
called?
writing.
Keep writing.
Yeah. Yeah, keep writing and do that thing that you want to do. Do all the things you want to do and do them quicker. That's what I'd say.
And what's the future hold for Paulette? DJ Paulette?
I want to write another book, and apparently I should be just writing it. I mean, I've got notes, post-its all over the house, and like notebooks all over the house because I've got 2 books in my head that I want to write. And I read this Mallory Blackman biography this weekend, and she says you should have that book written. You shouldn't be thinking about writing it.
People
You
people
should
love
have
giving
that book
advice,
written.
don't they?
Yeah, they do.
See, I can't be doing with advice. Never have done.
Yeah,
What are you most proud of?
my book.
Okay.
My
Not
book.
your Lifetime Achievement Award.
And the Lifetime
We've got to
Achievement
drop
Award,
that in.
and the Lifetime Achievement Award, and the NTIA Award, and also I got another award, the Northern Music.
All right.
Northern Music Award.
Keep
I'm
right.
proud of that. Nordoff Robbins.
I've
my
got
DJ of
awards,
the
but I don't
year
go on about
this
them.
year.
Right, listen, Paulette, it's been an absolute
of
pleasure.
everything.
Of course you are.
Do you know what I am also really proud of?
What?
Is sitting here with you
Why?
all these years, because
Oh,
we
yeah, of course.
have
Right,
been.
yes, I know. I've got to tell you, I've only asked about a third of the questions I've got
Good.
written down.
I know.
So maybe we could do it again another time.
I'd love that.
It's been an absolute pleasure. You are an absolute icon.
Yeah, so are you. Love ya. Love ya. He's ace, isn't he? He's fucking marvellous.
So, Paulette, thank you so much for joining me on the sofa. That was absolutely wonderful, and good luck going forward. And I'll see you in a DJ booth,
Yeah, we will.
and probably on a dance floor soon.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got July coming up, haven't we?
We have.
Castlefield, so we'll see each other on that dance.
Brilliant. Paulette, thank you very much. And join me again.
Let's make some music.
We should make some music. In fact, let's go for a coffee and talk about it now. On that note, thank you very much for joining me for Haçienda in Conversation with Paulette. I'll see you again with another guest soon.
Yeah.
No, listen, I have had to
Should we talked about
because
it?
we launched Haçienda Records like literally a few months before we lost Oliver, so that's all gone.